So,
What is up, Aaron? Welcome back to the show. The election is almost here, basically less than 2 weeks away. How you doing, my friend?
Well, early voting starts next Saturday, so the
I'm
election is.
definitely gonna try to go do that early voting just to get it out of the way, you know.
wait, what
Well,
election? What election is that?
District 6 for for congressman, basically. So we got a lot to get into because a lot's happened since the last interview. In fact, a few controversies have basically risen. A lot of people have been talking about, mainly the flock camera controversy, which is a lot of people have been talking about. James Fishback, Paul Reiner, even a few congressmen. What is your take on the whole flock cameras? Do you think flock cameras should even be allowed in our district to be surveillancing people without like their permission?
well, flock cameras are a Fourth Amendment violation, and anybody that tries to parse words and come up with excuses against or in favor of flock cameras, don't. It's my opinion they simply just don't understand the Constitution.
Yeah, because it's like you can't just surveillance people without the permission, because that's basically a Fourth Amendment violation, and it should definitely be made illegal. And I feel like when you get elected, you should definitely write a bill that bans flock cameras. Such I already know James Fishback's working on it, stuff like that.
Well, I think it's a little more complicated of an issue than just saying, okay, we're going to ban flock cameras.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
I think that if you look at the issue of flock cameras as a whole, if flock cameras were simply collecting one point of data, meaning a license plate as someone drove by, uh, you have a lessened sense of um, privacy when you're in public. Okay. So I understand that. So if a flock camera was simply collecting a license plate to be able to say where that license plate was at a certain time, then I think that you could get away with that, uh, and it wouldn't be a Fourth Amendment violation uh, because you're in public. However, you would still need a warrant to access that information, and so that would mean that okay, there would need to be specific laws written about how long you can keep that information. So let's say we really have no clue at this point how long that information is kept. So let's say that information is going to be kept on a 72-hour time frame right now, and it's simply going to just be a pinpoint of a license plate. I don't think it's a violation of privacy to say, okay, well, you're in public and, the only point of information we're collecting is a license plate. Where it gets into Fourth Amendment violations, in my opinion, and I'm not a constitutional attorney, but I've read the Constitution many times, and I do have a constitutional attorney that advises me. Um, where it gets into a Fourth Amendment violation is when they're collecting multiple points of data and there's no warrant required to access those multiple points of data, and they're basically selling or using those multiple points of data however they see fit. So if you say, okay, well, um, you know, Aaron drove by the corner of 44 and 44A at 12:07, okay, I probably live with that because that's fact. However, if you at the same time say Aaron was playing um, a Dolly Parton song on his phone, and these are the stickers that he has on his car for identifying marks. Um, there are so many points of data that are being collected that it has to be a blatant Fourth Amendment violation at this point. So I think that there certainly needs to be legislation to limit it to to a single point of data, meaning the license plate, and no other data can be collected, and that information can only be accessed through a warrant, and it needs to be on a 72-hour loop.
So basically, your thing is like you're not really against flock cameras entirely, but you're just against the privacy and violation of it. You basically just want it to use for license plate identification and only that only. Basically, only certain data can be collected and not like full on just basically, spying, like basically only like to basically catch like traffic violations and shit and to basically get your license plate.
Well, if you said that it was illegal to, I mean, it goes back to what I said, that there needs to be legislation to limit, and the biggest thing is under the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment requires a warrant for a search. So if a government entity needs access to that information, and I understand that there have been some things that have been captured over the years, um, that help with abducted children, or what we have in Florida, what we call silver alerts, if there is an elderly person that has gone missing. I understand that. However, you can still go to a judge and say, hey, we believe that, this person was in this section. We need access to be able to search for this specific license plate. And it's just like a FISA warrant. However, what's happened is that there's so much abuse in the system. Even if you look at FISA, I mean, FISA is completely unconstitutional. FISA is the surveillance of American citizens. So it's the same thing. We're surveilling American citizens without a warrant. It's a Fourth Amendment violation.
Yeah, because you need a warrant in order to use any of that surveillance against
Correct.
them, and yet they're doing it without a warrant. And I feel like that's probably your main issue is like they're doing it unconstitutionally without any warrant and not even doing it for the right reasons either. They're just doing it just so they could spy on American citizens for a political agenda instead of actually enforcing the law.
I mean,
Correct.
if you are at least gonna use like a surveillance camera, just use it for the right reasons. Don't use it like for all the invalid reasons or something.
And not only that, but you have to also follow like protocols and stuff. You can't just sit there and be like, we can go after this person's license plate and we can gather all this data. We can gather what song they're listening to and we can publish that all out there. It's like, no, you got to actually do it for the right reasons.
Like,
you got to do it.
Isn't that
You got to get a
stalking?
warrant
Like,
and you
isn't
also
that
got to have
stalking, though?
probable. It's basically you got to have probable cause.
Yeah. If you do it for the wrong reasons, then that's basically stalking. Am I right? Technically stalking.
Well, and there have been quite a few instances of that where people with access to this information that work in some form of law enforcement have access to the information for, nefarious reasons, meaning tracking a ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, all of those reasons. A warrant, which is the Fourth Amendment, would cut all that out.
Yeah, and that all should be cut out because it's like, what are you doing using your? That's basically like they should get fired for that, and they should be arrested because like they're basically abusing their position and power to basically, use the flock cameras to track ex-girlfriends, track friends, track whatever. It's like you can't use it for personal gain. You got to use it for basically, what you're using it for.
You're
Yeah,
100% correct.
So,
isn't using it for the wrong reasons like stalking technically? Like,
Well,
I mean,
that's why there needs to be legislation written specifically to cover flock cameras, because I mean you can, you can manipulate any law that's currently on the books for whatever reason you want, meaning that you can say, okay, well, I believe this is stalking, or people have been charged with other crimes, or uh, improper use of government documents, or improper use of government equipment, but there's no legislation written about the limitations, the expectation of privacy, etc., and that needs to be done.
yeah. Also,
that
where's the election taking place in? Like, which state?
District 6 around like the St. Augustine, Daytona Beach area.
Yeah, but I mean the primary elections are across the state of Florida.
Yeah.
August the 18th is the the primary. The early voting varies by county. However, mandatory early voting is August 8th through 15th.
Yeah. So also you've been doing a lot of events as well. Basically, you've been actually putting yourself out there and stuff like that. It's like unlike Dan Bilzerian, who hasn't even done one event in the district, you've actually been doing how many events have you? Which you probably haven't kept track with them all because you've been doing a lot. But how many events would you estimate that you probably have done? Because I know it's definitely more than like 300.
Yeah, at one point we counted, and I lost count when we got to like 260. Um, so I don't know. We have three different things scheduled tomorrow. We had three things scheduled today. However, one got canceled because it was raining. But I mean, most days, two or three events. Every day.
Yeah, and it's like, what's your favorite part about like doing these events? Like, does it actually help like put the message out there like more especially? Because I've been seeing you go into like. Also, by the way, you're typing. Can you not? Or mute? You're on mute. All right, sorry about that. But anyways, it's like, so these events, it's like, how are you able to put yourself out there? Because I see that you actually be going to nursing homes. You're actually appealing to like the older people in the district and stuff like that. And it's like, how do you appeal to like the older people? Because some people can argue, oh, a lot of people in the district won't like your rhetoric because all they do is watch Fox News and you're against the Iran war and you're against stuff that Trump's for. How have you able to convince a lot of the older people to basically go on your side over Randy Fine?
Well, I haven't been to any nursing homes yet, but we do a lot of door knocking, and with the software that we use, I mean, you'll see the person's age, and when we're out door knocking, there are a lot of people that are, will be like, geez, this guy's 86 years old, and a lot of people just appreciate the one-on-one interaction. And we go to a lot of different club meetings. And it's generally the older crowd that goes to most of the different club meetings.
And I feel like that's something that Dan Bilzerian is refusing to do because he refuses to basically appeal to the older crowd. And it's like, you got to at least appeal to the majority of people of your district. And if you don't do it, why are you even running the district, That's something you.
Well, I mean, he's sending out campaign mailers. The mailers that he's sending out, he's using an image from when he was a movie extra on the set of, I think it was Lone Star or something in 2003 or 2013. I don't know the exact details, but somebody had paired up the image that he's using on the mailers that he's mailing out to people, talking about serving in the military, and it's from when he was a movie extra. So it's kind of comical at this point. He did. When he announced that he was running, we spoke before that, and he told me that he was going to run against Randy Fine, and okay, what? Well, whatever. But at that point, I expected. Oh yeah, there it is. A 2013 Lone Survivor. Yeah, so that's when he was a movie extra.
So it's not even him in the military. He's just basically using that to pretend like to basically trick voters that don't really do the research that he was in the military. But it's like, bro, that's when you were in a movie, not when you were in the military.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like Navy SEAL get up, which you're not going to wear. Most Navy SEALs are not going to wear that full gear when they're walking around anywhere. I mean, you're using that when you're on the side of the road in Fallujah. So it's whatever. He's spent how much ever money. Basically, his whole campaign is just, let me see if I can just send out mailers and trick people into voting for me by sending out a mailer that shows me as a Navy SEAL, and I flunked out of Navy SEAL training. You know, who knows whatever. It's a joke. Um, since he announced he did come to the congressional district for one weekend, came to Daytona Beach, stayed at Daytona Beach one night, and then went up to St. Augustine, and um, so he's been here for 2 days out of campaign season. So this is going to be a test to see if you can run a campaign from your home in Las Vegas. And I've talked to some of his campaign staff. We were at an event together in Daytona Beach, and of course he wasn't there, but his campaign staff, 2 people were there. And I said, why doesn't Dan show up anywhere? And this, well, we'd like to know that ourselves.
He's too busy in the ball pit with Jake Shields, man. You got to give him some slack. He's just planning it out in the ball pit.
Or paintball range or whatever it is. I don't know.
Yeah, it's another paintball tournament. It's like that one America First event that was basically trying to hijack it from Nick Fuentes. He couldn't even show up because, like, oh, I'm at a paintball tournament, guys. It's like, that shows your priorities.
Well, I mean, it's sad because if you took the amount of money that he has raised, and you put that into a real campaign, this would be a slam dunk campaign. The problem that Dan has created for me is that, when I talk to people about fundraising and I'm asking, for help because campaigns run on money, I don't need nearly as much as Randy Fine or Dan Bilzerian because I'm out there so much. But, everybody's like, oh, that's the one that Dan's running in, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, but, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Dan's running from Las Vegas and I'm here. So
he thinks he's helping the movement, but all he's doing is just splitting the vote. And it's like, you're definitely going to poll higher than Dan, but it's like, if Randy Fine does end up winning August 18th, he'll basically be responsible for it, because you were very close. Because I remember seeing St. Augustine for Fishback basically putting out the polls. You were like really close to being Fine before Dan came in the race, and then Dan
in the last straw poll that was done in Volusia at an event that I was at, I'm polling 12 points ahead of Randy Fine. So it all this may not matter. I may just win, and may the best man win.
Because you're literally the only one that's like, not even Randy Fine's been doing really events. Because I haven't even heard of, like, I asked people around the districts, like, is Randy Fine doing events? So, like, no, not really. He's just been in DC for the most part. Like, he'll do an event once in a blue moon, but only lasts like an hour at most, and then boom, he's already back in DC. It's like, he's not really trying because he feels like he's secure. He feels like he doesn't have to do anything because he's like, oh, I got the Trump endorsement and Byron endorses me, so I don't got to do anything. But it's like, that's not how it works. Like, you got to go do the work. Like, endorsements don't really matter, especially if you're not doing the work.
Well, and that's true. Perfect example is the other night I think this was Wednesday evening. I had 3 different events scheduled Wednesday. And then Randy Fine did have one event scheduled in Palm Coast. And, I know he had about 55 people there. 6 of the people came in with Randy Fine. So, let's say he had 50 people there. 12 of them were candidates. So that, that leaves 38 people that actually showed up to a campaign event. And, you're talking about on a day when I went out and knocked on 300 doors with my crew. So, who's reaching more voters? It's certainly not him, but, we'll see how it all plays out. I mean, I do feel good about it. The real big thing that I need help with in the last push here are volunteers. And, we still do need a little bit of fundraising. Fundraising goes toward, get out the vote messaging, being able to, send text messages, emails. Everything costs money. we're limited to sending out 120,000 emails a month. If we go beyond that, then it's another couple $100, and text messages. If we send 80,000 people a text message, that costs us $1,200. So everything costs money.
Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely probably like after this stream, I'll probably put $50 into your fundraising just to help you out, because it's like you're kind of like the last one out of the America First coalition left, because Michael Noss sadly dropped out. Tyler Dykes ended up losing his election, so it's like you're kind of like the last one left. You're actually the one doing the most well out of all of them. No offense to the rest of them, but it's like you're the one that's like pulling the higher out of all of them. So I feel like because I had this gut feeling that only one of you, because like being an America First candidate, it's really hard to do, especially in times like these where we're occupied by a bunch of foreign governments and stuff like that. So it's like it's really hard to be America First, and I feel like one of you definitely has to win. And I felt like it was probably going to be you, because you've been doing these events every single day. You've basically been working as hard as Fishback, doing like 3 to 5 events every single day, reaching out to all these voters, actually appealing to the voters in your district and stuff like that. You've been doing a lot of the work. So it's like, even if you don't win, it's definitely going to be really, really close for sure, because you've been actually doing a lot of the work. In fact, a few of my friends have been telling me, oh, I actually hear about this Aaron Baker guy, because, people are actually hearing about you because you're actually putting yourself out there, unlike a few other people like Randy Fine and Bilzerian.
Well, Randy Fine's taking it for granted, and Dan's an idiot. So the biggest point that I have when I go talk to people is they know that I understand the issues here. They know that I live here. They know that Dan does not live here. They know that Randy Fine does not live here. So they know that I'm the one out of the 3 that lives in the congressional district and knows the issues here. And most people, they really, really just appreciate when someone simply shows up. So when you keep showing up and you keep showing up and you keep showing up, it makes a huge difference to people.
Yeah, it really does. It actually gets people to realize that you're actually serious. And I feel like as well, Fishback's been doing the same thing as well. So I feel like, you definitely have I definitely have a lot of faith in you guys, because you guys are actually showing up, doing these events. And no shade to Casey Putsch, but it's like in Ohio, Casey Putsch didn't really do all that. He didn't really, because people wonder, oh, why did he lose in Ohio? It's because he didn't really do that many events. And that's the same with Dan Bilzerian as well. He's not really doing events, but people like you and Fishback are actually putting yourself out there, actually, doing like multiple events every single day and not skipping a single day and not taking any time to rest. And I feel like that shows a lot of dedication. Not only that, but a lot of the policies you're saying are really right too. Like you're against the foreign wars and Israel controlling our country, but at the same time, you're not like Dan Bilzerian saying, oh, we gotta go kill all Israelis, we gotta be violent, we gotta be anti-Semitic, we support Hitler. That's like, you're not that rhetoric, and I feel like you actually have the right talking points and you know how to address the issue without being a full-on schizophrenic.
Well, I mean, you're correct. Dan is, one extreme of saying, we need to exterminate Israelis, or that he would take up arms to exterminate Israelis. That's nonsense. And then on the other hand, you have Randy Fine calling for the streets of Gaza to overflow with the blood of women and children. So,
so it's like
the complete extremes here. And, I'm just kind of driving right down the middle lane here, being like, okay.
You're basically the only moderate one, as Randy Fine is too extreme on one side, and the other side, Dan Bilzerian, is extreme on the other side. You got one wanting to kill all innocent Palestinians, the other one wanting to kill all innocent Israelis. It's like you can't win.
Yeah. So, here I am stuck in the middle with you, jokers to the left of me, clowns to the right of me.
And you got both of them basically calling you, like you got Randy Fine basically. I don't know if he said it lately, but I know like he was trying to deciding to use like some anti-Semite Palestine supporter. On the other hand, you got Dan Bilzerian making fake screenshots of your website saying that your website supports Israel. It's like, how do y'all even make this shit? How do people even believe that? Because if you go to your website, it clearly says the opposite of what Dan's little minion screenshot says. Because I remember when Dan first announced, I was getting spammed by a bunch of Dan Bilzerian bots with a fake screenshot saying, I am Aaron Baker and I support Israel. It's like, this is not his website. They didn't even do it right. They actually put out their actual website and they're like, oh, that's fake. You made it AI. It's like, you guys made it AI. I could literally screen record. I could literally pull up the website and it doesn't say that you want our tax dollars to go to Israel. They completely just made it up. It's like, can you really trust people on both sides, like Randy Font and Bilzerian, if they're both willing to make up shit?
I mean, this our government at this point comes down to. Let me start with this fact. At this point in time in our nation, Social Security is going to be bankrupt in 2032. Okay, so that's money that we've taken from people that have worked for years and years and years and years, and the federal government is giving them about like a 1.2% return on their money. Not even enough to keep up with inflation. And they've mismanaged that to the point where Social Security is going to be bankrupt. However, at the same token, our federal government gives directly or indirectly the Taliban between $20 and $40 million per week. Now, how does that make sense? Okay, so our government is broke. We're 39, almost $40 trillion in debt now. We're giving the Taliban $20 to $40 million a week. We're robbing money from seniors. If you took the average senior in the state of Florida on Social Security, they're receiving $1,871 a month. If you took the money that they paid in to the government, to Social Security, over that same course of time, the average senior, and you invested in the S&P 500, the average senior would have a return of about $5,400 a month. So you can see the huge disparity in when you put the government in charge of anything, the government is less efficient at doing anything than private enterprise.
Yeah, it's just like you can't really not only that, but it's like, why are they even funding the Taliban? Oh wait, hello, can you hear me now? Hold up. Is my stream? I should be fine. I shouldn't be. Hold up. Hello? Hello? The fuck? Can I hold up? Let me check. Hello? It's good on my end. Hold up. It's
nope.
Good on.
Cannot hear you.
I can hear myself on the. I can hear myself on the YouTube. Can you guys hear me in chat? Because he can't hear me apparently. Hold up. Let's move. Can you hear me now? It must be on your end.
Can't hear you. I'll sign out and try to come back in.
Yeah, try that. It's happened as the other guy left. Okay, so it is. So can you hear me in chat? Can you hey Kaya, can you hear me? Because I checked my phone. I hear you both. Okay. So it may just be his end then. Hold up. I'm gonna text him, let him know. Chat can hear me. Chat says they can hear me. Must be on your end. All right, you should be able to hear me now. Hello?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, because chat said they can hear me, so I don't know what happened, but sometimes StreamYard does that where it fucking just fucks up the audio on someone's end. I don't know why it does that. But it's like, that's the thing. It's like, I don't even know why, because that's the thing. We went to war in Afghanistan against the Taliban, but it's like now we're funding them. And I know probably why, too. It's because Taliban doesn't like Iran and we have similar enemies, but it's like, that's just how you know, like our government and the Zionists, they're not really morally good because they're willing to fund terrorist groups to just go after other terrorist groups. Like, can you really trust a group that's literally using other terrorist groups as proxies to go after their enemies? Can't really use.
Well, I mean, the entire point behind me saying that is that we're not taking care of Americans
No, we're
first.
not.
When I drive down 95, because this congressional district has about 60 miles of beach from South St. Augustine to Daytona Beach. When I drive down 95 and then get off on International Speedway Boulevard, which is the main drag in Daytona Beach, where the Daytona 500 is held, Daytona International Speedway is there. When I make the loop from 95 onto ISB, and you go back under 95, there are always homeless people underneath that bridge. And that's unacceptable to me. When you look at Daytona Beach is not as safe as it was when I was growing up. When I grew up, for us, it was a treat to go to Daytona Beach. And, it was always, we always felt like it was safe. But now, if you go even one block off of the beach, I mean, you're in a completely different world. You wouldn't do it. It's not safe.
Mhm.
And I think that our leaders, local and federal, have completely ignored the needs of the people here, and that has to change. That has to
That
change.
definitely has to change because I remember too. I did this March for America event, and I brought my friend to St. Augustine, and he didn't have anywhere to go, so he tried to go to the homeless shelter, but just because he didn't have like a St. Johns County ID, they said, "Oh, you can't stay here. You don't have an ID. You can't stay here." And every homeless shelter basically rejected him just because he didn't have a state ID. It's like homeless people usually don't have ID. They usually don't have documentation. So what do you expect? Like, don't you like? Isn't a homeless shelter's job for them to get that documentation so they can, get back on their
Well,
feet? Like, isn't that the point of that?
the problem is that they don't have the underlying support. None of these organizations have the underlying support. Every one of these organizations that are out there trying to help people, I mean, they're scraping by from day to day. They're the one homeless place that I went to, that they have about 20 tiny homes and also a men's shelter, but they're scraping by. They're dependent on the donations of locals to be able to provide a food pantry. um, and I understand, uh, thankfully, that St. Johns County is one of the more wealthy areas in the state, so that a lot of people do help out. But this specific shelter, they take the day old bread and day old baked goods from Publix, and that's one of their main things that they use. But the entire point is our federal government doesn't give a damn about everyday people. I mean, most people are out there struggling from day to day right now. I see it every day. I mean, if I stop and get gas, I'm surprised if the person in front of me got $20 or more worth of gas. Where I live in Lake County, it's a little more rural, and you'll see, people get $5 worth of gas, $8 worth of gas, $10 worth of gas. Well, that's 1 to 2 and a half gallons of gas max. That's somebody trying to get back and forth to work that day. So
That's
people
not
aren't
even a half a
even,
tank.
yeah, I mean, people aren't living paycheck to paycheck. People are living day to day. And until the government realizes that its sole purpose is to protect its citizens, and we get back to that specific point, then right now, our federal government is just screwed. You know,
Mhm. And
it's
it's and that's the thing. And I feel like the only way for it to fix is for it to just to crumble down and it to be built back up because like there's just too many corrupt officials in there. Like everyone's like they rather just there's too many warmongers in there. There's too many warmongers in the Senate, in the Trump administration, in Congress. It's like all they care about is fighting wars for a foreign country that doesn't give a damn about us. But here we are struggling at home. It's like that's the thing. It's like we don't hate Israel. We don't care about if Israel has a right to exist. In fact, I feel like every country should have the right to exist. But it's like we shouldn't be sacrificing our own tax dollars and our own citizens and our own people and our own economy for a foreign country that doesn't give a damn about us. And I feel
Well, I
like
mean,
that's what's
what does right to exist even mean? People have a right to exist. Does the United States have a right to exist? Does China have a right to exist? Did Americans have a right to exist? I mean, I would certainly argue Americans have a right to exist. Um, Chinese have a right to exist. I mean, does
basically
any,
everyone has a right to exist,
you know,
especially Palestinians. That's why it's like with that whole conflict, I believe in a whole two-state solution just because it would resolve everything. It would resolve all the fucking wars. But problem is this administration, a lot of people in Congress don't have the balls to actually, make that point of, hey, if we just had a two-state solution over there, we wouldn't be involved anymore, and we wouldn't have to basically go over there and be involved in these wars anymore. I don't think we would be in war in Iran or we wouldn't even be in war with any of these Middle Eastern countries if we just had a two-state solution over there. That way everyone, basically benefits in the end. But they don't want to do that. They just want to, benefit themselves and don't care about anybody else. And that's just the problem. And I feel like, we definitely need to prioritize America and American values because that's the thing. When I go to downtown St. Augustine, I literally see homeless people in every block almost.
of course you do. Until we get to a point in this country where we stop focusing on blowing things up and we start focusing on building up our own country, I don't know how that changes. I've said many times, I don't want Boeing and Lockheed Martin building, bombs. I want Boeing and Lockheed Martin building the next generation supersonic jet. Um, why are we not investing in this country? Why do we spend $1 trillion a year on the Department of Defense, and 300 billion of that is just to blow things up? I mean, this is nuts. What could we do? You divide that over 435 congressional districts, and you get $650 million per congressional district a year. Um, these numbers are crazy. I mean, I could fix every single issue in the 6th congressional district with $650 million a year. Stop blowing things up and start building things. That's how we make this country great again.
Is stop blowing things up and actually invest stuff and build things that matter for us and not for foreign governments. And it doesn't matter what foreign government is. Like we got to put ourselves first because that's the thing. I always say this all the time. We can't be the war police until we build ourselves up. We can't just go police the entire world if our issues are not fixed. If we can't even police ourselves, why are we going to be the war police if we can't even police ourselves?
Well, okay, you look at what the Senate did last week. They approved a $2 billion aid package to Jordan. What does $2 billion translate to per congressional district? About $4.6 million, give or take. So what could I do with $4.6 million in the 6th congressional district? I could build a VA homeless shelter. I mean, this is not rocket science. Stop printing money, stop giving money away, and start taking care of Americans.
Exactly. Like we can't just be giving aid packages to Jordan, Egypt, Israel, and all these other countries if we're like for what we're 40 trillion, we're about to be $40 trillion in debt. It's like we don't have all this money to we're gonna end up getting bankrupt by trying to help all these other countries. And that's how a lot of superpowers end up falling is them helping all the smaller superpowers and then empire collapses and it's just like we end up getting split to all. It's like if we want America to still be around and America to actually be a good place to live and the American dream to actually be valid, then we got to help ourselves and invest all this money into ourselves and helping ourselves and actually, lowering the debt a little bit because what are we going to do once we get to $50 trillion in debt? It's like
Well,
you
the
said.
problem is this is the curve. I mean, the curve doesn't go like this. The curve goes like this because you exponentially increase the debt and the service on the debt um, to where right now about 65% of the federal budget is on autopilot, meaning it's entitlements, it's interest spending. So that only leaves about 35% of the federal budget of discretionary spending, meaning to fix bridges, roads, infrastructure, all that stuff. So we need to get this country back on track, and we're not going to do it if we continue spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year, um, blowing things up. And if you look at our national debt, half of our national debt can be attributed to wars in the Middle East. And that region has been fighting for 2,000 years. We haven't been able to solve it in the last 100 years, and at the current rate we're going, I don't see any end in sight of how the United States of America is going to solve this. I mean, you're 100% correct. There needs to be a two-state solution um, between Palestine and Israel. Israel needs to play nice when the president of the United States says, don't bomb Lebanon, don't send troops into Lebanon, and the government of Israel does it anyway. That's not acceptable to me. The United States should answer to no one. And we have to get back to a point in this country where that's the way it is. We're the boss, and we're not taking orders from anyone.
The FAA, all right, I'm going to read this chat real quick. The FAA system we have today is a catch-22 because any country wishing to subvert the petrodollar is a threat to American economic dominance.
Well, I mean that's correct because oil is traded on a global market in U.S. dollars, and what we don't want is you have the collapse of the U.S. dollar if you have um, other countries begin trading commodities in currencies other than the U.S. dollar.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I mean that's 100% correct.
And also knowing which this issue's not really a big issue in this district, but it's like we definitely also gotta work on doing the mass deportations on the illegals that are just here illegally. Which I know it's more of a problem in South Florida than it is in North Florida, but even then, it's like there are a few instances of just illegals just coming here, getting on welfare and stuff, and not even doing any of the work. It's like, why are they getting welfare? Why are they even getting approved of this stuff if they're not even legal citizens? If they're legal
Well,
citizens, it'd be one thing, but it's like if they're here just illegally, they don't even have the paperwork. It's like, how is our government even approving these people?
it's like the temporary refugee status of the Haitians from the earthquake. Okay, the earthquake was over 10 years ago, and how long does temporary protected status apply? I mean, when is the time? When is the time to go back home and rebuild your own country?
Yeah, it's like it's been 10 years. I don't think another earthquake's happen. It's going to happen anytime soon. So it's
I
like you
mean,
might as well
it's
go back.
of course, no one wants to go back to Haiti. I mean, I've been there. I don't want to go back to Haiti either. Uh,
But it's like if you want to stay here, you got to actually file the paperwork like everyone else and actually become a legal citizen before you could just leech on a welfare. Like you shouldn't just come here on some protected status and be like that's the thing. If you want to stay here, then you need to convert as a citizen. Like I'm not against immigration, obviously, but it's like if you're gonna come here, you got to do it the legal way. Because it's just like Charlie Cook always says, it's a disrespect to the legal citizens that spent years and years trying to come into our country, and they finally come here, and you see all these douchebags coming in illegally, and they're just like, "Why did I do all this paperwork?"
well, one of the biggest problems was the unsecure border, and the border's been secure now. However, the second part of that is Congress needs to get off their butt and do their job. And what I mean by that is programs like the 287G program, which gives sheriffs the ability across the state of Florida to hold um, undocumented persons until they're picked up by immigrations and customs enforcement. Uh, you know, right now that's operating under an executive order. Congress needs to get off their butt and actually do their job and codify some of these executive orders into law. Another perfect example is the legislation that Congressman Waltz, who was a previous representative before Fine, he wrote the Life Saving Gear for Police Act that allows police and firefighters to purchase military surplus equipment. And you would think that that's common sense. However, what happened was Biden wrote an executive order saying that, well, you can't do that anymore. Okay, well, guess what? Volusia County still needs to be able to, you know, buy the stuff that they need to buy. So President Trump came in and, of course, with an executive order and fixed it. However, Congress, the legislative body, has yet to take up the legislation that Congressman Waltz wrote to be able to fix the issue once and for all, so that if we don't have a Republican president in the future, that this isn't an issue. Congress is not doing their job. They get up there, they point fingers at each other and say, the other side's the enemy, and I'm not going to work with the other side. When in fact, there is so much that we agree on. Probably 80, most of these issues are 80-20 issues. Let's fix all the 80-20 issues first. Just like election integrity. Should you have an ID to vote? Absolutely, you should have an ID to vote.
Exactly.
In Florida, you go to vote and you show your identification. In Maryland, where I lived before, it's still to this day. If you walk in to vote, you give them your name and you tell them your birthday. You don't have to show any form of ID at all. And that's how it is in a lot of these liberal states. They don't want to have any form of ID to vote, and that's completely unacceptable. Elections in the United States of America should be determined by American citizens. That is a 90% of the people, or something like 86% of the people. It's
No, but if it's a state local election as well, you need to make sure that they're voting in the right state. Like, you can't just have people drive to another state and vote for districts that they're not even in, that they don't even live in. That's why I feel like ID is important as well. Because if it's like, let's say if it's like election like yours, someone from fucking Georgia shouldn't be able to come and vote for Randy Fine or Bilzerian just because they live in Georgia. It's like, bro, like, they don't live in the state. And you need to definitely have identification to make sure the right people are voting for the right things and not outsiders coming in from outside the country or outside the state or outside the voting district coming in and just casting illegal votes. Like, all of it needs to make sure it's background checked and legal, because it's like, especially in the state local elections.
Well, out of the three of us, there's only one of us that can vote in the 6th congressional district, because one of us doesn't even live in the correct state, meaning Nevada. The other nincompoop lives 100 miles south of the congressional district, and not even the neighboring congressional district, but in the 8th congressional district. So he can't vote in this congressional district. I'm the only one of the three that can actually vote in this congressional district. So when I go to fill out a ballot, my sample ballot has my name on it. Their sample ballot, neither one of them has their name on it, because they don't live in the district. And I understand it's in the United States Constitution that you have to live in the state in which you represent. And Bilzerian said that if he wins, he would move to the state of Florida, which means he would probably move to Miami Beach and get a penthouse so he could, throw hookers off the rooftop into a pool and break their ankle, like he did before. And Randy Fine, who basically lied to all of the people when he was running, saying, "Oh yeah, sure, I need to talk to my wife and see if we're going to move to Flagler County, or if we're going to move to Volusia County, or if we're going to move to the Villages once I'm elected." And where does he live? He still lives in Melbourne Beach. Yeah, he has no intention of moving. He wanted to move to Washington D.C. He wants to be the United States ambassador to Israel, or he wants to be a United States senator. Which, over my dead body, if I had to go knock on every door in the state of Florida, I would, make sure that he's never a senator from the state of Florida. Yeah, it's just we have to get back to a point of common sense. So that's all I have to say about that. They're just it's a crazy world that we live in.
Definitely crazy world too, and it's like, and that's the thing too. It's like I do. And that's the thing. Real good encouragement too for you not dropping out, because I'm sure this race has been kind of hard too with all the attacks going on and all the people from both sides basically getting attacked from Bilzerian and Fine side. And it's like, I'm glad you didn't drop out, and I kind of wish Mike didn't drop out, but I know he had his own reasons and stuff, and I wish him
Yeah,
the
but
best.
I mean, Mike's got a wife and 4 kids. This is a
Yeah,
full-time job.
yeah, it
You
is
know,
a
I
full
mean,
time job. So I do understand, but it's just like there isn't really, anyone in that district that's really good. I felt like Mike was like the only one that was really good in that district. But at the same time, it's like, you got, he has priorities. But it's like you've been staying in the race and stuff, and you don't got 4 kids and on that. So it's like you have all the time to basically, kill and,
well, I
the
mean, it's fortunate for me that have a good business partner who can run all of the business side of construction and everything needed. And basically the last month and a half has just been complete, nonstop campaign. Where before, a couple months ago, I'd do one thing in the evening, and occasionally luncheon here, there, wherever. But now it's nonstop. It's 100% go.
which if you which this question's like, if let's say James Fishback ends up losing, but you end up winning the congressional like race and stuff like that, would you be endorsing Byron Donalds or Jay Collins, or would you just not really give a comment on that? Like if like they end up winning, but you still end up winning.
I'm going to give you the Paul Renner answer on that, because Paul was asked that exact question, and he said, "Will I vote for him? Yeah, I guess. Will I break my back to go work for him? No, I won't."
That's honestly a really good answer, because it's like that's the thing. It's like you should like obviously it's like, yeah, you want to vote for your party, but it's like you don't want to just go fully submit to them and not criticize them just because they ended up winning. It's like we're in the same team. It's like this is not team sports. Politics is politics, and it's like just because you're in the same party doesn't mean you're gonna always agree, and doesn't mean you have to break your back and vote and all that. Paul Ryan actually said he's not going to even vote anyone but himself, basically, which honestly
So
do
let me
like.
give you let me try that again. Let me give you the perfect answer to that question. The perfect answer would be from George Washington in 1796 from his farewell address: loyalty to party over loyalty to the state, or he said country, to the country, has the potential to be the downfall of this country. And I'll transfer that to the state also. So I don't believe, I believe that you have to stand on your morals. I know for a fact that um, one of my campaign people asked Byron a question about Randy Fine, and I know that Byron Donalds told my campaign staffer a lie about how he felt about Randy Fine, saying, "Oh well, I don't really know him that well." Well, guess what? They
He
do.
literally endorsed him because I looked it up like a
Yeah, of
week
course.
ago, and he literally endorsed him. It's
I mean,
like, bro,
they've been to many different campaign events together. They know each other.
they know each other really well. In fact,
They
I
know each
saw
other really
this
well.
one video of Randy Fine calling Ron DeSantis a loser for not endorsing Byron. It's like you can't sit there and say, I don't know him that well. Like, get out of here. You're both
Yeah,
endorsed by Trump. You both are pro-Israel. Y'all both are in Congress of the same state. You're both endorsing each other, but you don't know each other.
Yeah. So I mean, I have more respect for the other people in the race than I do um, for Congressman Donalds.
Yeah, same here. Which honestly, it's like I feel like the only two in the race that I feel like I really just can't stand is Jay Collins and Byron because for one, DEI hires. Two, they both did the lawsuit against Fishback, which I feel like was very unconstitutional because they tried to remove him off the ballot just because he lived in D.C. for a short period of time. It's like in that case, why don't y'all try to get Bilzerian removed from the ballot? He literally lives in Vegas right now. And yet they're not doing anything about Bilzerian, but they're going to do something about Fishback just because he lived in D.C. for like a year and then came back. It's like he was
No,
born here.
if anybody wanted to take up the Bilzerian case, it would be Randy Fine, and Randy Fine doesn't want to take up the Bilzerian case because Bilzerian filled out his paperwork wrong. He said that his legal residence is in Mount Dora. His legal residence is not in Mount Dora. His attorney's office is in Mount Dora, and I mean that was notarized on his paperwork by a driver's license from Nevada. So how do you have a driver's license from Nevada and claim a legal residence in Mount Dora? 5 minutes down the road from me. But Randy Fine did not want to take up that case because Randy Fine wants all of the anti-Fine votes split between everybody else. So he wants to be in his, he wants to be able to get 40% of the vote and win, which, we'll see how it plays out. Me personally, I'm not giving up, not quitting, continuing full speed ahead, 100%. 3 events scheduled tomorrow, and don't plan on slowing down anytime between now and August the 18th.
Mhm. Paul Reiner is a Zionist who supported this disastrous war from the beginning and hasn't said anything since. I don't like him. I don't like him on that part either. Like, yeah, he says the right things on AI data centers, flock cameras, and other things, but it's like on the war issue, it's like I don't really like him on that either. So I really agree with you on that point. But yeah, it's like that's the thing. It's like it's hard to find someone though that isn't really anti-war because like the Republican Party basically made it hard for someone like a Fishback and Aaron
Well,
David to.
my concern on the state level is, will the governor send the Florida National Guard overseas for a war that the United States Congress has not voted on? And if the answer to that question is no, they won't, then the governor would have my support. If the answer to the question is, you know, that the governor would send the Florida National Guard to overseas anywhere for a war that the United States Congress has not voted on, then you do not have my support.
And I feel like that's another reason why I feel like a lot of people don't really want Byron to win because Byron's one of those people that would definitely do it in a heartbeat, 100%. Because that's all his rhetoric is basically supporting whatever Trump says, supporting the war, protecting Trump's war powers. So it's like if Byron had the power to do it, he definitely probably would send the Florida National Guard to go there. Same with Jay Collins too, and I feel like Paul Ryder would as well, and a lot of them would. It's like the only candidates that I see that wouldn't do it is someone like James Fishback and someone like Bobby Williams. But the problem with Bobby Williams is he's not really as known as Fishback. Not only that, but he doesn't do that many events like Fishback. So it's
Well,
like
he doesn't have the following. I mean, he has the following of the, the Facebook crowd, which okay, great, but the problem in this race is Byron started so early, and he has $100 million in the bank. So
and has the president's full support too. So it's like it's
but I
really
mean, well, so does Randy Fine. Who cares about that?
yeah.
It's. I think that really does not hold as much weight as it did when the president was originally reelected in 24. Just because the poll numbers are so disastrous, And I even talked to Republicans who they don't. That's not a determining factor for them anymore. Where
Yeah,
it would have been,
it
2
would
years
have
ago.
been it would have been 2024, but 2026 it's not really because a lot of Trump voters are actually upset, and a lot of people do want change in the Republican Party, and that's why it's like Trump ended up changing his endorsement from Tony Gonzalez to Brandon Herrera in Texas just because of that, because a lot of people wasn't supporting Tony, and Trump didn't want his endorsement to look weak, so he supported the candidate that was already winning. But it's like that's the thing, is endorsement doesn't really work anymore because people want America first. Truly, they don't want just all these random shills coming in anymore.
Well, I mean, again, we'll see how this race plays out.
Definitely
So we'll keep in touch, and any
keep in
of any
touch.
of any of your supporters that want to donate $10, $20, $5,
Over however much.
$3,300, anywhere in between. You know, it helps us text messaging, it helps us emails, it helps us, uh, you know, every single day.
We'll
So
probably do one more interview like after the election just to see like how everything played out. Because I plan on doing it with everybody, like with Tyler Dykes. I still got to interview Tyler and all that. But I appreciate you coming on. It's been great conversations, and I really do wish you the best. And after the stream's done, I'm gonna donate $50 just to make sure you get to help with more ads, messaging, and all that. Because I really do believe in you, and I think a lot of the audience does as well. You have my full endorsement, and hopefully you do win this election. And if you and Fishback win this election, and it just shows that not only Florida has a future, but America as a whole is going to be going in a positive direction. I feel like if America First candidates actually do prevail on August 18th.
thank you, sir. God bless you, and I
God
look
bless you
forward
too.
to talking to you again soon.
Of course, you take care, man. You have a
Thank
good
you.
rest of your night.
Have a good
Peace.
night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. It's been Aaron Baker. If y'all want to go, I'm going to go get his link. If y'all want to go support him, make sure you guys go donate to his link.